Welcome, everybody, to our Pulsebeat podcast. It takes place each and every week where we get the chance and the opportunity and the honor to visit with people such as today, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny. Many of you have heard about her. You probably know and love her already. We were just honored that you'll spend some time with us on this podcast and share your new book and maybe bring us up to what is planned for 2025 and what you see from the space that you hold and how we can continue to educate and bring true health and healing to people that are looking for it. I love the name of your book, Zero Accountability in a Failed System. Can't wait to dive into that. And of course, Mr. Josh Hewlett, that's part of the Cardio Miracle team. His father is the one that created Cardio Miracle, and he's continuing with the legacy. And we're really honored to be able to offer to you one of the finest supplements on the market, and a supplement that truly is making a difference each and every day. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's nice.
Absolutely. So Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, I've followed you for so many years. I was an emergency room nurse for years, and you were an emergency room doctor. And when you started to awaken everybody to what was going on, you were the first one that I really was able to lock into, and really was speaking truth into my questions, because we started to question, if you're in the middle of things years ago, there wasn't too many people that were picking up that sort of truth and going out there and speaking it like you did. So maybe you can just share with everybody a little bit about what brought you to today. I know your history is so long and vast and honorable, and then we'll get into your book a little bit.
Well, I've been doing this for 25 years now. I found, as you said, I was board certified in emergency medicine. I was the director of a level 2 trauma center for 12 years. Then I moved to Cleveland and I started an integrative practice. And that's somewhere along the line, people started saying, what is your position on vaccines? And I really didn't have one, because I grew up in a chiropractic family. I was not vaccinated as a child. I had all the age-appropriate measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, pertussis, all of those things, and never really gave it much of a thought. And then I got a brochure in the mail from the National Vaccine Information Center to attend their meeting in September of 2000. I even went so far as to call them and ask them when their next meeting was, because going at that point in time really wasn't very convenient to go. And they said, well, we're a small nonprofit. We may not do another conference. And so I went and was there for 3.5 days and listened to moms of vaccine injured kids, moms of non-vaccinated kids, doctors, lawyers, bench researchers, all sorts of people talking about the problems associated with vaccines. And I came home from that conference just sort of like, how did I miss this? I've been in medicine a long time since by that time, so for like 15 years. How did I miss this? And I said, well, maybe I ought to look into it. So I started with the CDC papers, and then I read the Pediatric Infectious Disease Journal and JAMA and the New England Journal of Medicine and all the different mainstream medical journals, and spent 3 years trying to figure out why it was that we trusted this, and why did we routinely vaccinate patients and never, ever, ever questioned it. And I spent the first 3 years being really angry about that. And after 3 years of digging through enormous amounts of papers and spending hours and hours, literally, I would come home from work at 6 o'clock and I would go upstairs to my upstairs office, and I'd sit down at 7 and be there till 3 o'clock in the morning every single night. Wow. On weekends, I'd spend 18 hours. There were times when I took 2 weeks off from my practice and I went out to California and found a cute little bungalow right on the beach, and would hole up there for 2 weeks, like 18 hours a day for 2 weeks, just researching and reading and trying to figure out why in the world were we doing this. Mm-hmm. And after 3 years, I started to change and say, well, there's no good reason we're doing this. And it became, I would say, almost like an addiction. Like there was always moving parts, which held my interest. There's always, something going on, a new vaccine, a new adjuvant, something going on politically or in the law, or something going on with a particular movement. I've been through the autism movement. I've been through the Mercury Mom movement. I've been through all of the different things. And I just decided, the more, there was always something going on. And after 25 years of doing this, I can confidently say I've put in more than 50,000 hours, and that's not an exaggeration, of all
Wow.
the research I've done, that vaccines have never been proven to be safe, are not safe. They do not protect you from getting sick. They are not necessary, and every single vaccine causes harm at some level. It may not be overt. People may not, develop a seizure disorder, or they may not develop cancer or asthma immediately, but at some cellular level, it shaves off a few IQ points. It damages your mitochondria. It attacks your lungs or your heart. And every single vaccine, because there's now 18 of them that are now on the pediatric schedule, now that we've added RSV and the COVID jabs, and that children are just, and so I decided about 2 or 3 months ago that I was not going to ever talk about the pediatric vaccination schedule again. I was going to call it what it is. It's the pediatric poisoning schedule, that we poison these children on a schedule, on time, and they bully parents into bringing them in because they have to be compliant. They have to get their kids poisoned. And I think that if we can start a real movement of using that word and calling it what it is, the pediatric poisoning schedule, that maybe we will get people to wake up and stop poisoning their
Yes.
children.
Did you hear that, Josh? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
really good wake up comment, because if
Yeah,
somebody's telling you that,
Because
it is. It's amazing.
there's absolutely nothing good that comes out of any vaccine. It doesn't keep you from getting sick. It's not necessary. In fact, in many of the vaccines, it lowers your resistance and makes you more susceptible to getting sick. With all of the aluminum, the mercury that is still in the multi-dose
right?
flu shots, the polysorbate 80, I made a list of all the chemicals in all the vaccines. And if you get every dose of every vaccine, you will be injected with more than 100 different trace chemicals. And then you've got all of the proteins, all the adjuvants, the new adjuvants made by GlaxoSmithKline, the ASO3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which are horribly toxic, the oil vaccines. They're always tinkering with the immune system. And so there is no, if there's any possible way that people can prove that injecting chemicals, viruses, little pieces of bacteria, heavy metals, mercury and aluminum, and one of the adjuvants made by GlaxoSmithKline has traces of tree bark in it, and
Oh my
and so
goodness.
if we can say that this in any way improves a child's health, then we should continue. But because the vaccines have never been tested with a placebo, the definition of effective means that when I inject foreign matter, it creates an antibody. Effective is not the same, is not a synonym for protection. And so if we can prove, in fact, there was a quote that came out of like the 1930s that a physician, and at that point in time, they really only had smallpox vaccines, and they were starting to give pertussis vaccines to children. And the quote was similar, I'll paraphrase a little bit. How can we say that injecting foreign matter into a little baby in any way improves its health? And when you see completely unvaccinated children and they're robust and bright and inquisitive and
Right?
ahead on the milestones, and they are not chronically sick and they don't have ear infections, and they're personable and they sleep well and they eat well and they grow on the milestones, and they are just the sweetest little kids you've ever been around, then you're around a bunch of fully vaccinated kids that have chronic ear infections, sinus infections, snotty noses. They're
Right?
cranky, they're irritable, they don't sleep well, they have a temper, they have all these things, and you compare the two. Well, it's because the child with the bad temper has been stabbed with needles and chronically poisoned even before birth, because we're now giving pregnant women 4 vaccines, 5 vaccines if you also happen to be Rh negative.
Unbelievable. So here's my question. My oldest is 43. We were just talking the other day amongst all of us is, years ago, you looked around his classroom, there was not one child with autism. Now you look all these years later and you're looking around the classroom. My youngest daughter's a teacher, and she said, what is the statistic now? Is it 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 9?
The new statistics that just came out nationwide is 1 in 31. There are 1 in 20 are boys, and in the state of California, it's 1 in 12 kids. And that they
Unbelievable.
actually have been able to correlate that with in 2015 and then 2017, I believe, is the second date when they eliminated the ability to refuse. They took away the philosophical and the medical exemptions, or I'm sorry, the philosophical exemptions and the religious exemptions from the state of California, and made the medical exemptions nearly impossible to get. And at that point is when the huge uptick of autism, because most of those kids, they had a philosophical exemption in California forever. And
Right.
most of those kids had 0 vaccines and were forced to get caught up. And many of them were given 10 and 12 vaccines on the same day
At a time, at one
at a
time.
time. And now we're seeing
Oh,
this huge uptick in autism in California and across the country. Back in the day, back in, say, the 1940s, the 1950s, autism was 1 in 10,000. But here's the thing, autism is the worst, or one of the worst form of vaccine injury is death.
right.
And then just short of death, just a little bit down from death, is autism, particularly of the low functioning autistic kids, the ones that are severely damaged. They can't
Right.
speak,
Right.
some are blind, they can't go to the bathroom by themselves. They will never be able to be a functional human being in society. They'll never be able to hold a job, pay taxes, have a date, have a family, any of those things. Those are the children we're talking about with severe autism. Now the high functioning autistic kids that are just a little quirky, they're taking on this whole thing and saying, oh, well, autism is just a variation on
Yeah.
normal. And seeing a 26-year-old kid with chronic seizures that can't eat, can't feed himself, and can't go to the bathroom by himself, that is not a variant on normal. And so now that we're seeing all of these kids that are we talk about autism because it's so severe and
Right.
so stands out. What we do not talk about that we should talk about is asthma, allergies, eczema, ADD, ADHD, insulin dependent diabetes, a long list of neurological conditions, including seizures, autoimmune diseases, and cancer caused by these shots. And so everybody focuses on autism
No, you're right.
when the
You're absolutely
real
right.
bell curve
Yep.
encompasses everyone. So when you hear Robert F. Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, talk about we've got the sickest generation of children in the world,
We
we
do.
do. I do not believe that we need a whole series of studies to prove it. The
Right.
studies have been out there. In fact, at one point in time, I had over 17,000 studies in my own personal library showing problems associated with vaccines. I don't think we need a whole new set of studies to prove that at least a contributing factor is vaccines. There's, and Naomi, I'm sorry, there was Cheryl Atkinson came out with a Substack a couple months ago that they took, I believe it was 55 of the most common conditions out there. And then they wrote underneath each one of them, and they had it all referenced and things of what were the contributing causes to all of them. And across the board, the highest number of these conditions could be caused by vaccines. And then way down the list was glyphosate and food additives and sugar and all these other things, because we are poisoning children from before they're even born by vaccinating their mothers. I'm old enough to remember, and I think you are too, when pregnant women couldn't even take an aspirin, or they couldn't take an antihistamine,
Absolutely. You couldn't
have
eat
a
tuna
glass,
fish. Don't eat tuna fish.
couldn't have a glass of wine, couldn't
Yeah.
do any of those things. And now we are injecting them, including the COVID jabs, when they are pregnant. So before the baby's even born, they've been poisoned. And then
Right.
as soon as they're born, They get a hepatitis B, a synthetic vitamin K, and now the new RSV vaccines within hours of birth. And then we wonder what happened to their brains. Or then we wonder why they
No
have
kidding.
cardiac problems or why they are way falling off of their developmental milestones. It's because of the pediatric poisoning schedule. And we've got to make a big deal about that.
We're going to keep saying that, aren't we, Josh? I mean, one thing that's
Yeah.
exciting to me is I've always been solution driven. So we have these challenges over here. What can we do as a healthy health center community to bring good things to the table? And Josh, when your dad put together the Cardio Miracle product, it was designed for his heart at the time. Who would have thought 14, 15 years later that that would be the number one product that people are drinking and having great success with? And wouldn't you say, I mean, even Dr. Tenpenny, that that's a safe product to give to our children?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. It's a whole food product. It's
That's
like
right.
feeding them good food, but yet it does it in a concentrated manner to really improve their overall health and wellness. I think that we get too stuck into treating specific conditions. I have X. What can I take for X? I
Yeah.
have Y. What do I need to do for Y? And I think that what we need to do, and this is why Cardio Miracle is such a great product, because it's overall health. The body is a self-healing, self-functioning mechanism, a self-healing machine, kind of.
That's
And that's
right.
kind of an osteopathic principle. And if we take care of all of it, our bodies will take care of us. If we put the right nutrients, which Cardio Miracle is full of all of them, we put the right nutrients, increase nitric oxide, which increases blood flow. The rule of the artery is supreme is another osteopathic principle, which
Yes.
wherever the blood goes, where it takes the nutrients and the oxygen, that's always a good thing. So Cardio Miracle expands that, expands the blood flow, expands the oxygenation. And so if we take care of the rest of the body can help to heal. I've got X or I've got Y, or what do I do about this? What you do about this is overall health and taking care of your body,
That's right.
which Cardio Miracle is perfect for that.
Yeah,
So,
I love
Josh,
that.
I know that you've been with your dad since the very beginning. We're just starting on this journey, and it's just absolutely skyrocketing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really exciting. When you were talking, Dr. Tenpenny, I was going back. I was just talking to Lisa about how my son is going to be 18 in August. And I was going back when he was at his 3-month checkup when he was born. And I was looking through this list of the vaccines and I was crying. I started crying. And this was in 2007. And I was crying because I was like, these little perfect babies
I
are
know.
injected with all of this right now. And the the doctor told me that he said all of this has been just, it's not proven, like everything has been debunked about the vaccines being bad. And I just said, I don't care if anything's being debunked. I'm like, this is like we are harming my child. And so thank God I was able to like divert that for at least 8 years before him and my son's mom and I decided to get a divorce. But then she got all this backdated vaccines all pumped into my son, and he is sick a lot. It's really sad to see, but thank goodness he does take Cardio Miracle 2 to 3 times a day as a 17-year-old, and he's also an athlete and musician, and he's brilliant. But it was really it just brought me back, to 2007 when I was looking at this long list of vaccines that were supposed to be injected into him, and I was able to, get him to chill for a minute, a couple years until she, got him stuck with everything. So it's pretty crazy. But what is so amazing is how you're willing to stand out and stand up and
Absolutely.
shout and make a difference. That's really admirable.
Well, once you know what you know, you can't unknow it.
That's right.
And when you spend as much time and as many years as I have looking at the vaccine literature and know that from the beginning, from way back from smallpox, from the beginning, we've been lied to
That's right.
about safe and effective and necessary. Once you see it and then you start seeing, the as the vaccination rate went up, the health rate started to go way down. And you see that in kids, you've
That's
seen
right.
it in adults. You see, you look at the VAERS database and you look at all those injuries that are there. You look at all the injuries from the COVID shot. 1.6 million VAERS reports filed about injuries from the COVID jabs. And and we know that that the VAERS database collects somewhere between 10 and 12% of actual injuries. So when you see all of these people that if 1.6 million filed reports and that's only 10%, everybody, almost everybody that's gotten a
That's
COVID
right.
jab is either sick, injured at some level, or dead. And yet that vaccine is still on the market. That I don't want to call it a vaccine. That jab is still on the market,
That
advocated for
poison.
pregnant women and babies 6 months of age, and that children don't even get COVID. And it's just this mass poisoning that's continuing over and over again. I mean,
Right.
Josh, you just can't not talk about it. After a while, when you see the damage that's been done, it's what's so frustrating for me personally is after doing this for 25 years and spending, the only time I'm not writing about, researching about, or talking about vaccine injuries and vaccine problems is usually when I'm asleep. It's consumed my whole life.
Wow.
What's frustrating to me is how many people are still willing to get the next booster.
Yeah.
They're willing to take their kids and lay them on the table and sacrifice them to the gods of pharma. And, that's what's frustrating for me. And that's what drives me. And whenever I get an email or a text message from someone that says, I heard you on such and such show, and I decided that I'm not going to vaccinate my kids, I always feel like, yes, another one
Yes.
snatched from the jaws of the pharmaceutical industry, And
You have a new book, Zero
yes,
Accountability in a Failed System.
yeah.
And I'm so excited for everybody to hear about it. And we're going to there's going to be a little tab on the bottom to be able where they can purchase your book and the website and so on. But so this is a compilation of all your year's work, correct?
Sort of. I started it in summer of 23 when bird flu was starting to raise its head again. And I thought, I wrote a book in 2005 called Fowl, Fowl,
Yeah.
Fowl, bird flu, it's not what you think. And so my staff convinced me that I needed to do something about this. So I looked at the book and they said, well, why don't you just give it a different name and we'll just retitle it and republish it? Well, book was written in 2005, so it's a 20-year-old book, and it had a lot of Bush politics from 2005, and those. And I said, no, I think there's a bigger story to be told here of what has happened over the last 25 years since bird flu in 2005, which was the institution of the PrEP Act, the Medicare Act, Medicare, Revisement Act that was just total entrapment of elderly, all the different things that have happened of how public health has been weaponized by electronic medical records, why we started to use adjuvants. The 40-year march to 2030 is a chapter on something that we don't ever talk about in our health freedom movement, which is that in 1980, they started a program in the U.S. called the Healthy People Program. And our Surgeon General at the time started that with just 6 simple goals, but that between 1980 and 1990, we would have health goals for the nation. They were simple. They were things like wear a seatbelt, stop smoking, wear a helmet if you're going to go on a motorcycle, weight loss, exercise, simple things. Well, so every 10 years, they create a new Healthy People extension. So now we're at Healthy People 2030, which have, instead of 6 goals, they have 42 goals and 1,200 objectives.
What?
that they are snooping their nose. The government, it was a way that the
Ah,
government can snoop their nose into everything that we do, including asking all of those social determinant goals. Like they want to talk to your child alone when you go in to take your kid in now. They want
wow.
to
How
talk
would
to them
that work
alone.
out, Josh?
And they want to ask them things like, do you feel safe in your home? Does anyone in your home have a gun? Does anyone ever speak loudly to you or hit you? And all these different things that go into electronic databases and become the new gold. And I talk about each
Wow.
one of those decades and how they were advanced. And then there's a chapter called
Wow.
Sacrificed for the Greater Good, which is about the horrible, horrifying countermeasure injury compensation program, the CICP, that was actually came out of the PrEP Act in 2005. So everything that happened during COVID was planned in 2005. And I lay that out and show that it's a template for what they're going to continue to use unless we know about it and stop it. And the CICP has never been, it doesn't have an injury table. It was never funded by Congress. It has a very short period of time, 1 year, that you can file for a injury compensation. And all of those people, the 1.6 million people that I talked about that filed a VAERS report, and all the rest of the people that got damaged are never going to get compensation for the government. In fact, only 40 of all those millions of people, only 40 have been settled by the injury compensation program. And of those 40,
Oh
you
my
take out the
goodness.
they paid two people. One was a $2 million settlement, one was a $370,000 settlement. And if you average the other 38, the average payment for all of their injuries was $4,000.
What?
And no
Oh,
compensation for any deaths,
mm.
none. And
Oh
so I
my
lay
word.
all of this out and really show people about the trap of Medicare, the trap of electronic medical records, and really talk about things that honestly, one of the reasons I'm so proud of this book is that it pulls together a lot of things I've been doing for the last 25 years, but it also talks about things that are not generally talked about in our health freedom movement or in the vaccine movement. And so it gives people a different perspective. And then chapter 19 is my favorite. It's called Tying It All Together, the Activist Playbook. So after you hear all this, like pull your hair out sort of stuff, here's a whole chapter on things you can do and get involved
That's
and to
great.
make a difference.
I can't wait till everybody gets this book because Josh, we talk about it all the time. Is we concentrate on all the issues. You just raised all the issues again, and I had an aha moment when I remember walking in a patient's room with two sets of vaccinations to give the baby, and the doctor said to catch them up because they were behind. And I had a gut check about it, and I talked to the mom about it, and I said, "Do your research. Do you want all these to be given to this little baby all at one time?" Because the baby had a cold before its prior immunization. So we all have that moment, and then we scramble to find solutions. So I'm excited because this call, of course, is laying out all your years of research and your brilliance, and then also, I I've been taking notes all the time. Chapter 19 is the activist playbook. Can't wait to get there because everybody's going to want to know what to do next, right?
Well, and part of the activist playbook is really, it's written in such a way to give you ideas. It's not to tell you what to do. It
Right.
plants seeds for ideas so that you can say, well, that doesn't work for me, but if I did this, that really
I
won't
love
work in my community. But if I did this, so it encourages people to think and think for themselves on what you can do. Because we get, like when we get so stuck into like treating a disease,
it. Yeah.
we also get so stuck into just tell me what to do. And
Yeah.
that's how one of the reasons of how we got here, because
Yeah.
people just were such sheep. And so we don't want to be one of the people just telling you what to do. We want to lay out all of the, a whole list of options and then say, now take this and do better. Take
Hmm.
this and do something instead.
And Lisa, if I could, that's our mission, is that we not only do we want to save the hearts of mankind, but we as Cardio Miracle, we want to make sure that people are taking their health into their own hands and really doing something about it. And it's not so much about being told what to do as much as just taking charge of it. I mean, myself, I shouldn't have gotten up to almost 500 pounds, but I made a decision that I was going to take my health into my own hands and
Amen.
drop 180 of it. So I'll drop 180 pounds. So that's the thing, is that we want to empower people and encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah.
And then just, I think the stress that everybody's under right now, they're under tremendous stress. And of course, Dr. Tenpenny would know all about how the brain works under stress. It just doesn't. And the fact that, the last 3 products that you added, the lion's mane, glutathione, I mean, both of those are really helpful to the brain function detoxification. So we're really helpful, or really thankful for Cardio Miracle and what they've done and brought to the table. And of course, Dr. Tenpenny, it goes without saying, we're all your biggest fans and support you in any way that we possibly can. And we're so thankful for everything that you've been doing for all these years. This wasn't something you just started a year and a half ago or 5 years ago. So hats off to you. You're my biggest hero in this walk that we're on. And I just really appreciate you. I know that you could be in a lot of different places, and you chose to be with us this morning. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks. And people can get the book either by just going to drtenpenny.com, which is our main website, drtenpenny.com/0. So that's pretty easy to remember. Or you can get it from Amazon. You can get it from, it's only been out for about 3 weeks, and we've been doing really well so far. And most of the feedback that I've gotten from people have said, man, this is really eye-opening. Even Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, who wrote the foreword to the book, said that she learned a lot by reading it. And
Awesome.
she said that, and that was quite a compliment to me for her to say that. And she said, it's just the way that you put it out. And she said, and it's really interesting. It's just not a bunch of dry facts. So hopefully people will get it. They'll read it.
Yes.
They'll put it to work. They'll like it. They'll go out to Amazon, give us some good reviews, because then Amazon does good things for you. And then go forth and conquer and put the Activist Playbook things in place. And think about it kind of the same way we do with Cardio Miracle. It's the overall health of what you can do. I really position Cardio Miracle for overall health benefits, because it does improve all areas of your health, your heart, your brain, your lungs, your kidneys, makes you go to the bathroom, so it improves your intestinal tract, cuts down on inflammation, so it makes your pain go away. I mean, all sorts of things. So it's overall, it's like the foundational supplement that you really need to take into your health. Now, there's lots of other things you can take in addition, but you should start with Cardio Miracle. And if that's all you can afford, because supplements can be expensive, don't leave out the Cardio Miracle. Take that and start that and see what it can do for your health.
Well, I don't know, Josh. I couldn't have said it better.
It's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to ask at the end of every podcast, I ask for just 30 seconds on how Cardio Miracle has helped you, but that was absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tenpenny. Look forward to seeing you in person soon at one of these wonderful events. And Josh, as always.
Yeah, very excited to get your book. I'm going to go on Amazon and grab it and leave a 5-star review right away.
Got it.
Because I know it's going to be a 5-star at least. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you so much.
God bless everybody.
All right,
Thank you so much, Dr. Tenpenny.